This is the Belarus border right here. So on a recommendation of Olympia, Andrea Gombieski's friend that owns a bed and breakfast here, we went and did Wysokie Bagno. Wysokie Bagno is kind of like a bog area back in here, but it skirts the border of Belarus. So we actually crossed a big bridge coming down and through here, and it was a nice hike. The Army heavily patrols this area, so we noticed when we were back there, big Army presence in 2.5-ton trucks.
This is the area that we're heading into. How do you pronounce it?
Wysokie Bagno. Wysokie means high. I don't know what Bagno means, but...
There's 4 different trails back here. I think we're on yellow.
Black, green, yellow, and red, so it's got to be that one.
Yeah. We are on day 25, and this is our last day in
Bialowiecza, which Betty cannot pronounce.
I can't pronounce it. So we're out for a short little hike. It's going to be less than a couple of miles. Right now it's just kind of on an open road that cars aren't allowed on.
But it's close to the Belarus border, so let's see what we can see.
Yeah, so we should be able to see the line between Belarus and Poland. And
those commie bastards, they better stay away.
So there is some logic to these posts that we see. That's the direction we would have came from if we were following the AllTrails map that we have verbatim, but we cut it off a little from the parking area and are now back on the trail with AllTrails. This is the area that we're heading into. How do you pronounce it?
Wysokie Bagno.
It's still pretty chilly out, but the flowers have opened up today. I just missed taking a video, but the Army is patrolling the road that we just came down. These are all the plants that we should see around in this area. I'm not good enough to pick them out. And the different trees. Spruce forest.
Spruce.
Hear the birds. Birds are singing.
Well, their hiking trails in Poland are more like
Pathways.
Improved roads, unimproved roads.
At least the ones we've been on. But you can still get out in the forest and listen to the birds and not hear traffic, noises of the city. Here's one of those markers. But we don't really have a map that calls it out or lays it out like they have it numbered. And we have purple flowers too. These are all fresh tracks, so the Army doesn't come back here. It looks like an egg shell. Olympia yesterday mentioned that in the past, the two governments, Belarus and in Poland, were very good at working together with this forest and national park area. Poland has such a small part of it, but they used to work together, the scientists, and now with the war, all of that has shut down. When I mention the war, I'm talking about the Russian attack on Ukraine. Poland has led a lot of the Ukraine citizens into their country, and that was frowned on quite heavily, so that's the war I'm talking about. This is animal hair. I don't see a carcass. Yeah, lots of hair here. Alright, here you get the view of the fence that divides the countries.
Here we are on the Wysokie Bagno Trail, which is right on the border of Poland and Belarus. Heavily patrolled by Polish army forces. We passed a couple trucks coming in here, and you can see off to my right here, big tall fence, probably a 10-12 foot fence. That is the Belarus border. Thought about going into Belarus maybe about 5 years ago. I looked into going into the city of Vilnius and Osmania, and my father was born in Kushlani, which borders Belarus. On this trip, no can do. Ukraine war going on, heavy patrols going on, and we heard trucks back and forth. So beautiful area. This is considered a buffer zone probably between Belarus and Poland.
There's the fence dividing Poland and Belarus. I'd say we're probably a quarter mile from the border. Pretty back here. Well, more hair.
A lot of hair on that animal, whatever it was.
Yeah,
Something
again,
got killed there.
can't find the carcass. Vito found the carcass.
Yeah, that's a moose.
Oh, poor thing.
That's definitely a moose carcass. Look at that skull.
Big hooves. I was wondering where the carcass was.
Probably ate it. Somebody ate it. The wolves ate it.
And that's the skull.
Or
For comparison, just had Vito stand next to this big hoof. It's pretty big. We're about a mile into our trail, and we will parallel the fence for a little bit. Vito thinks that there were horses back here instead of the moose tracks. In AllTrails, it is called Nordic Walking Park, so you'd have to look it up under that. I never heard of this. I guess you can exercise while you're back here. This is our intersection, which is the closest we're gonna be to the border. That road behind us here will take you to the fence. We're not heading there. I think this is my favorite trail for hearing all the birds. Quite a variety in this forest. There's wetlands, a little river that we went over, forest area. Nice back here.
we're at one of the many bogs in Wysokie Bagno in the Bialowiecza forest, which is a state forest, not the national forest, bordering Belarus. And beautiful area. It's a shame that the Russians will be pre-positioning weapons, nuclear weapons, tactical nuclear weapons, just down this road, probably by the end of the summer, right in Belarus.
I thought we were going to see a moose up here, but it's a horse. Doesn't look afraid of us.
See, here's where the Germans built the railroads coming through here during World War II. This is Hitler's railroad right here.
Oh, there is railroad tracks. There's no fence
There's no
here.
fence. There's a lot of lot. In Poland, this part of the country, they don't fence their horses. They just assume they're going to stay there.
Are you sure? No, he's staked out. He's got a lead on him. He's definitely staked out here. Vito has stories sometimes, I swear. It's nice how they preserve the history of what's gone on in the region. This is a sign that tells a story pretty close to what Vito's father experienced. Why don't you kind of summarize? And mothers. Why don't you summarize what they're saying here?
Well, this is how, the war started with the Soviets and the Germans being on the same side. And then in 1941, there was a Soviet Union had an amnesty agreement with the Poles, and they said, okay, we're not on Hitler's side anymore, we're joining the Allies. So they let many of the Polish people in the gulags and camps out, and they kind of scattered. Some went and joined the Polish army in exile in Britain, and some were allowed to come back to Poland. All right, but these Russian forces did mass executions. They worked you to death in these gulags. In a lot of cases, the Russians were a lot worse than the Germans to the Poles. This monument here is put in honor of Antoni Zedz. He was a farmer here in Bialowiecza, and the Russians came and took his land in 1939. His grandchildren put a memorial here for him. So he was deported, went to a gulag, Soviet gulag, and this memorial to the Soviet deportation of Polish citizens to Siberia tells the whole story of how the NKVD and the military and the Russians and the Soviets treated the Poles. Over here shows you exactly where the Poles were deported from and to, different parts of Kazakhstan.
Pretty sad. Kind of mucky back here, but it looks like you can get up and look out over the marshy area. So let's check it out. Guess you could come up here and wait for some wildlife to come by. Vito's over by the bridge. Yeah, a little mucky. See if I can get out of here. Oh, that's the normal path, but that's even worse than this. Okay. Yikes. Yeah, that's the normal path. The first real colorful seeds I've seen. Their telephone poles are a bit different, made out of cement. We're back to where we started. It was about 2.3 miles.